Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Casual Coaster Enthusiast Plays. We're going through the Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 scenarios. This is a multi-part episode. This is Vanilla Hills, just the first scenario. But what I've been trying to do is going through and making the parks as realistic as possible, so that's why it's taking us a little longer than it might if I were solely focused on winning the scenario. And I have a wall that should not be there. So last time I added a little bit of scenery, just a couple trees around some of the rides. And I built stations for all of the rides that need them, the 2 coasters and the monorail. And then I added operator booths for the quad bikes doesn't have anything. I'm not as familiar with that kind of attraction as I am with a lot of these other rides. So I don't know what they might necessarily do. Those would probably be an upcharge attraction at a real park, and I don't usually ride those, so I'm just going to leave that as is for now. I moved the operator booth for the Dodgems. It had been over in this space between the Dodgems and the Thunderbobs, but I wasn't satisfied with that location, so I just moved it adjacent to the main path here. We do have a couple of changes. I said at the end of last episode that I had lost some of the work I had done, and I had to go back and rebuild a lot of it, so in the process of that I added a trash can over at the exit of the top spin because I'd been noticing some vomit. And I think the other big change is moving the operator booth for the Dodgems. So I think, Ellen, the other thing is we've unlocked an octopus flat ride. So that's probably going to be the first thing I do this episode. And I think what I'll do this time, I hadn't in the previous episodes, but what I think I'm going to experiment with is doing this in a series of updates. Just going through every time we do a major new addition to the park, every time something changes, I'll come back for an update. So I'm going to play around with that, see how it works out, and let me know in the comments how you like that, if you think that's the path I should take going forward. I kind of think that's what I'll do, but I want to hear your thoughts, so. But yeah, the first thing we're going to do is add that octopus. I'll let the game run. See what other rides we can unlock, and then I'll also be putting some scenery along the path, spins, trash cans, that is, benches, lights, etc. Shops and stalls might come later, but we'll see. So I'll come back. I'll unpause this for now, and I'll come back when we have the next update. So we have added in the octopus ride, and I just hooked up a quick little queue. In the meantime, while I was waiting for that, I did unlock the rollerplane flat ride. That's something I want to add. I think that would be a good fit for the park. First, I'm going to recolor the ride. I'm going to play around with this a little bit. that is open. So yeah, next update will be the Rolo plane, and then I think we'll work on adding some of the bins and benches and all of those kinds of path decorations. And that might be a couple of updates. We'll see how that pans out. I'll see you in the next update. So we are back with the Rolo plane. I had to move the chicken that was here to the other side of the hot chocolate stands to get that to fit. Research is going slowly enough that there's not, unfortunately at this point, a whole lot I can do, although I might come back, add a couple more shops and stalls. Maybe we'll see. I probably, yeah, I should add a couple more. I think first, though, before I do much of that, I want to get down, like I've said before, I want to get down the drop tower and, if possible, an observation tower. Not the Hershey's Kissing Tower, that's a little too themed for my tastes. But if we can unlock just a generic observation tower, I'll certainly add that. And that'll round out the ride lineup, and then I will come back and finish out the decoration. So I'm gonna let this run a little bit. I'll probably come back with one last update. I don't know what we'll have unlocked by then, but certainly one more update or an overview at the very least, and then I'll call it this episode here. So I'll see you for one final update. So we are back. I did finally manage to unlock the drop tower, the launched freefall they call it in the game. I'm going to, I don't know, there's two ways we can go about this. I think, because it is a little bit taller, I think I'm going to go for make this an S&S model, which that's what this in-game ride is based on. And there's two ways we can go with that. There's the space shot where it launches you vertically upwards, or there's the turbo drop, which is sort of the reverse. This is currently set for the space shot program, the upwards launch. That might be... Actually, let's enter construction mode so we can test this. Well, that's actually a decent... and actually, I don't dislike the launch cycle for that, so... So that is good. We have that ride, and I believe it should be open. So yeah, I'm going to also encourage you to suggest names for that ride, the launched freefall, in the comments. And then next episode we'll name that. And there may be I think most of these rides could use names. The Topspin and the Wave Swinger I think are okay. The Rolloplane I've named. Satellite. I think the coasters have at least placeholder names. But yeah, if you want to suggest names for the Dodgems, the Monorail, the Enterprise, any of these other rides, those are certainly welcome. And so I think I'm gonna finish, because I paid off all but $1,000 of my loan. So I'm going to finish paying that off, and then we'll do a quick overview and call it an episode. Alright, there we go. That's the last $1,000 of our loan paid off, so we don't have that hanging over our heads anymore. You can see the park value we have at $92,000, and we need to win the scenario. Let me just double check our objectives, but it should just be the park value of $100,000 that we need. Yep, so we're well on our way there. So I'm going to just recap what we did. We started out adding this octopus flat ride. I keep calling it a monster because that's the version, the Eierly monster, I believe it is. That's the version I'm most familiar with, but there's several different versions of that same ride. We added the Rolloplane here, and we added this S&S launched freefall. So, yeah, pretty much all of the flat rides and the monorail need names, so I encourage you to suggest those down in the comments. And then I'm just going to let this run, see if we can unlock. And actually, let me change the research while I'm thinking about it, because we don't need any more thrill rides. So I do want to try to get the observation tower. That I can, depending on the size of it, I'll try to place in this, tuck in this corner between the Wave Swinger and the MACK spinning coaster. And then we did unlock a few shops and stalls, not all of which are necessarily helpful. The plane stalls are great. They're the most realistic options, but those tend to be a little bit awkward unless I were to create an entire building around them, which I could do, and that was originally my goal, was to, fully flesh out buildings and do all of that kind of work. That didn't quite pan out, but no, that's okay. I'm happy with how this is turning out. This is a good park. I'm definitely satisfied. It's just not my original plan. So yeah, I'll try to unlock the observation tower, tuck that in here, see what other shops and stalls, and next episode I think we're going to start out with making changes to our staff. I'm going to get a lot of angry employees for this, but I think firing the ones we do have and hiring entirely new ones so we can set up work zones is probably the way I'm going to handle this. And then shops and stalls, and then maybe, depending on how that pans out, maybe one or two more episodes of just doing scenery, and that should hopefully get us to the end of this scenario. So I'll call it here, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.